Show.
Good morning to you. Do you have a wee bit of a hangover or just a hangover? I mean, a wee hangover suggests you didn't go hard enough.
I reckon with the way they were drinking that champagne yesterday, those hangovers will be huge.
Exactly.
No, I reckon because they couldn't open the champagne. They'll be fine.
But they're such top athletes. So in, their peak physical condition, one glass, they'll probably be
Someone needs to
smashed.
tell me this. Someone needs to tell me this. What happens to the boat now? So the boat, AC 75, where does it go? What do they,
Well,
they
we
strip
have
it for
a
parts?
sailing
We will
expert
talk
here.
about this very shortly. But good morning, New Zealand.
The old mug is Outteridge again.
Okay, Team New Zealand's America's Cup triumph triggered massive parties across the country and especially near the bases at Auckland's Viaduct. She's a lot more quieter now. Peter Birding has even rated this Cup achievement as bigger and better than the win in Bermuda 4 years ago. But what comes next for this famous competition? Joining us now is sailing commentator Nathan Outteridge. Nathan, g'day, good morning.
Thanks for having me this morning.
Very welcome. What happened? What does happen now? So the morning after, in a race and an event like this, they'll wake up slowly. Then what do?
They all wake up very slowly and they're scratching their heads trying to work out what do they do next. That's the strange thing about the America's Cup is there's no second event after it. It's finished and then all of a sudden there's two teams that are going to make the rules and everyone stands by and waits to see what happens.
And so they're planning. So they go from this massive high of winning it, and the phase of racing, to planning again. And even am I wanted? I mean, is there an offer for me from another crew? Is that the sort of thing that happens?
Yeah, well, it depends on your role in the team. Like someone like Grant Dalton, he'll be planning the next America's Cup. He'll be discussing with the challenger of record. They haven't officially announced who that is, but I'm pretty sure he knows who that is. And exactly, they'll be making plans. Who knows what those plans are going to be? But as a sailor, your contract's out. You're out of a job, and you're trying to work out: do I get a job with the same team again, or am I looking at another team? The options start to go there, but no one's thinking about that today.
No, not today. But they do think about that because you have to know where your next feed's coming from. So,
absolutely.
Do you think the New Zealand boys, the New Zealand crew, might get targeted?
Of course they'll get targeted. I think at the end of every cup, whoever wins, there's always offers on the table. I'm sure they would love to stay with Team New Zealand, and knowing guys like Pete and Blair, they're very loyal to their country, so I can't see them going anywhere.
When you look at our victory from 20 years ago and you compare it to now, what did we do wrong in the days and weeks and months after that compared to, so we don't make the same mistake again?
I was pretty young then, so I don't really know, to be honest. I don't know what happened back then, but I know for sure now, the whole goal is making sure you have a very clear plan straight away, making sure you communicate that plan to the team, keeping them involved in the process so they buy into what the next plan is. I think when Emirates Team New Zealand won in Bermuda, it was pretty clear that there was another job to do, and that was to defend the Cup at home, and they've done that now.
And I reckon the same again as of this morning. Dalton is not a one-trick pony. Dalton doesn't do 4 years and then draws a line under it. This guy's a constant. There's a timeline that goes forever, doesn't it?
Absolutely. He definitely wants to see this through as long as he can, and he's built a very strong team. And, if you build a really strong team culture with the likes of the sailors of Pete and Blair and Glenn Ashby and all the crew on that team and the design team, you want to keep them together.
Yeah, because let's not underrate and underestimate what he's done here, Dalton. I mean, I know Birding gets Birding and Chuk and the lads that are visible get all the accolades, I suppose. But Dalton bringing this whole thing together, all these personalities, all these egos, the money, the whole thing.
It's not an easy job, putting together a team and keeping it all together. Let's remember the sailors just do the finishing touches. The whole job is to fund the team to start with, hire the right designers, hire the right sailors, get the right boat builders together. It's a people managing exercise, and when you get the right people together, the end result is winning the America's Cup. But if you don't get all those parts of it together, you don't get there.
I'm assuming that the challenger record is there to ensure that the holders don't just load everything in their favour to make it worthwhile challenging and try to keep the playing field as even as they can. That said, do you think the other syndicates will be interested in sailing and competing and challenging in similar types of vessels?
You're right. The Challenger Records job is to represent all the challengers. So they've got to negotiate with the defender to say, look, we believe the best thing for the challengers is to hold an event in 3 or 4 years' time, because that gives the most opportunity for challengers to get a boat, get entered and get going. If you don't represent all the challengers, you're doing a disservice to the America's Cup. So right now, if Ineos is the challenger of record, they will be discussing with all the other potential challengers, trying to work out what's the best thing to do? How do we negotiate on behalf of all the challengers for the America's Cup?
But do we have an advantage in that we can actually load this thing in our favour?
Of course, that's the defender's job. At the end of the day, the defender gets to decide the rules, and that's why America held it for so long. They had the rules stacked so heavily in their favour, and it wasn't until the Australians won in '83 that things changed a bit. It took the Australians, I think, 3 or 4 attempts to just grind them down to finally win. And as soon as that happened, it made it possible for all the other challengers to get in there. And that was when they created the Louis Vuitton Cup, which was basically all the challengers getting together and having this challenger of record and trying to find a way to come up against the defenders. So it's interesting. Sometimes the challenger of record and the defender work really well together and you have an amazing event, and sometimes there's a bit of love loss throughout it, and I think we've seen a bit of love loss this time around.
But also I think that they've also worked together quite well as well. I mean, Spittle was clearly a character that the Kiwis like.
Oh, there's no question. Someone like Jimmy Spittle, gets on well with all the sailors. And honestly, all the sailors get on really well together. And as a sailor, Jimmy's sailed with some of those guys before. I know Glenn Ashby was coaching Jimmy Spittle when he won the America's Cup in 2010. Those guys go way back.
Are they mates?
They're mates. Everyone's mates. You'd be shocked how friendly all the sailors are. And after this event, they're all going to be heading off to some other event and sailing together in events nothing to do with the America's Cup.
How do you rate this event, though, when it comes down to course, setting, competition, excitement, passion, people watching? How do you rate it on the world stage?
Well, I think for sure the fact that we're in Auckland, New Zealand loves sailing. And, the number of people that turned out in the viaduct yesterday and also on the water every day was impressive. You didn't even really need boundaries out there on some days because there were so many spectators lining the boundaries. No question, the boats are pretty exciting. They're going fast and they're foiling. I think probably if you had any criticism about the event, there was just not many challenges. 3 challenges is not a big number, In Bermuda last time round, we had 5 challenges, and we've sort of taken a step back.
Does it matter though? I mean, as long as there's a really good one at the end that takes on Team New Zealand, it didn't matter. I agree with you. Initially, I thought, where are these guys? Why aren't there more people here? It's expensive, it's tough, it's hard, and it's skilled. The best guys showed up at the end, and they were competitive.
Oh, without question, the match was a sensational match. I don't think we've ever seen a match that was so close early in the stages. We obviously talk about the 2013 Cup in San Francisco. It was one-sided one way and then one-sided the other way. I know it's a touchy subject in this country, but what we had this week just gone was a really tight battle, and then all of a sudden Team New Zealand got on a roll, and then it was hard to stop them.
I know we've been, talking about the design of the boat, and you hear this, the fastest boat always wins, but that New Zealand boat, is there a double-edged sword to it in that you provide the sailors with such a high-end boat? How difficult is it to sail? And if we didn't get it right, could we have completely cocked it up?
That's a good point. The Cup is always won by the quickest boat, but if you make a boat so fast and so on edge to sail, it can be difficult to perform. And the other thing is that the weather conditions, they had to race from 6.5 knots right up to like 23 knots. And we got a lot of light weather. And if you looked at the comparison of the two boats, the foils were really small on Team New Zealand. So when we had that race on course C in the harbour, it was quite shifty and windy. They were absolutely ripping in that. But on the lighter days, particularly that day when everyone was falling off the foils, I think there was some nervous moments for the sailors and the team. And yes, for sure, fastest boat wins, but you've got to make sure the sailor can actually use it.
And I reckon that's why the first few races we sailed conservatively, because I think we were worried about things just taking off lightning speed.
Yeah, and then conservative, yes, but also the boats had very different modes. If as a sailor you look at it closely, with the bigger foils on Luna Rossa, they had this higher, slower mode upwind, which was really strong. If they started to leeward, they could really force Team New Zealand off their game. So Team New Zealand had to find a new strategy to work out how to use the boat speed to get around them. When they won the start, it was very easy for them, but when they were behind, it was tough.
Full tip. Where's the next Cup, do you think?
Hopefully it's here, right? Hopefully it's in Auckland. Yeah. Could you imagine trying to defend the America's Cup somewhere other than Auckland for Team New Zealand?
No, thanks.
Yeah, exactly.
There is a home crowd advantage.
Oh, for sure. There's a home crowd advantage, and there's local knowledge of that sailing course. And you saw when we got to course C, Pete and Blair have been sailing in Auckland, their entire life. And they know where all the shifts are on that race course. So if you really want to defend the America's Cup and win it again, even if the boats end up being the same speed, it's the person who knows the venue the best that's going to win.
Although that's Dean Barker's backyard too. There you are. Hey, nice to see you. Sailing commentator Nathan Outteridge. Appreciate your time on the program.
Thanks very much.
This morning. Good chat. 19 past 8. We're back looking at all things America's Cup on the internet with our sailor boy, Aziz Al Safin. Good morning.